Christian Gossip, speaking to you today on behalf of the Hero Initiative, where myself, Jim McLaughlin, Joseph Michael Linsner, and a cavalcade of yet-to-be-announced comic book stars are putting together something really, really awesome that's never been attempted. We're really looking forward to telling you guys more about it, so please stay tuned. As always, everything we do will benefit the great cause that is the Hero Initiative.
Hey, yo, what's poppin'? It is Saturday night. I've got two of my homies with me, and we brought a special guest. But let's get to those guys that are hanging with me that you know, none other than Seawood 19. What up, Seawood?
What's up, Chad? Thanks for having me back again.
And Jason from Comics Misexplained. What's going on, Jason?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for having me, man.
So this is a very special show, guys, and we never get a chance to actually do something outside of the norm. And I've been wanting to learn about podcasting. I want to learn I want the Comic Core to try to break into that realm. And I needed a pro for that. So I reached out, and I think we've got the man, 35 years of experience. I mean, this is showing up legend on that end. We've got Word Balloon with John Siuntres. John has been doing this for quite some time. I'm sorry, my background noise is terrible. So I'm going to tag you in, Jason.
Yeah, man. John is a legend, and I'm very excited to talk to him again. He was thankful, and we were thankful enough to have his presence with us for the first Mainframe Comic Con, and we got to have him on, I think, twice during that weekend. He brought some really awesome guests. He has a lot of really cool friends, and we're definitely going to talk to him about some what he's been doing and give us some cool tips, man. So yeah, here he is, John Siuntres. What's up, buddy?
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for having me on. It's good to see everybody.
Dude, super stoked to have you, man. It's always a pleasure, like I said before in the pre-show. And it's always a treat, man. Yeah, what have you been up to? I know you've been busy, man. You're a busy guy, so we appreciate your time.
Well, and you guys are really nice. I've been doing Word Balloon, the podcast, for 15 years, but I'm a video newcomer as far as YouTube and everything else, and really ever since COVID hit, I just kind of felt, this is a good time to kind of learn more about video, and I've been, I suppose, quadrupling my episode count and really almost going every day.
Yeah, you have, dude. I've been trying to catch up, man, and it's really hard for me to catch up with your videos. You just have one banger after another, dude. I right after we last chatted, after Matt Fraction, you had Jeff Johns. Yeah, Jeff Johns. Yeah, and then so that was awesome and amazing, and you teased that on the show. That was really cool. And then you had Brubaker, one of my favorite writers of all time, and that one I definitely want to listen to again, just out of fun, out of pleasure, dude. I love that conversation. That was so cool. He's in probably my top 3 favorite writers of comic book writers of all time.
Oh,
so
me too, man.
I was super excited to hear that.
No, it was great. Because I've been doing it for 15 years. Back in 2005, and I had this sports talk background. I hope I'm loud enough.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. And I really reached out when there really weren't that many comic book podcasts out there. This was May of 2005, and leaned on the fact that I had this sports talk background, and back when a lot of creators had message boards, just reached out, and Ed was among the original guys, and Brian Bendis, and of course Fraction and Greg Rucka, 2 guys that we had on Mainframe, the first Mainframe.
That's right.
And also just a lot of the new publishers are kind of aware of what I do, so they reach out. So especially lately, it's been a combination of people that I've reached out to and said, hey, do you want to do something? But then a lot of independent creators are doing a lot of Kickstarters. They were planning these even prior to COVID. But I also found it interesting, especially when Diamond shut down, all the different people that were using different avenues to get their comics out, not just Kickstarter, but in the case of Ed, he and Marcos Martin and Marcos's Panel Syndicate and doing Friday, and also my buddy Alex DeCampi is another person that's doing Panel Syndicate. So I think that's kind of interesting.
I got to find out and research Panel Syndicate more. It's such a great idea, and they've been around for a while, and I'd love to talk to them probably about possibly creating a side branch to make like a music thing. I've had an idea a long time ago, more than a decade ago. I almost wanted to have like a small company where you could like buy stocks in your favorite like underground musicians. You know what I mean? Like everyone kind of puts together these super groups of different members. And now because of especially now because of COVID and prior as well, thanks to the nice easy StreamYard accessibility, people have been collaborating a lot more, and it's really cool to see a lot of my friends in these bands making these super groups and stuff. It's like, oh wow, it's really picking up, and it'd be really cool to have that under like one umbrella, under just one label that does it all. And I feel like they would be a really good fit for that because they know how to do it, So
I hear you, man. No, it's cool.
One thing I gotta ask John. John, like we've shared some time recently and had some amazing conversations, and. I'm going to share an example. The other day we were talking about Brian Michael Bendis, and I said, I'm just so disappointed. He's like, John says to me exact words, man, you got to understand where the writer's coming from. And in my mind, I'm like, this guy's full. I got to think about this one. And then I'm sitting on a Zoom meeting with Brian, and he explains his thoughts behind doing things. I literally picked up the phone as soon as that Zoom and apologized to John. You're right. I'm wrong.
No, I just, Brian has been a friend for like 14 years. And hey, man, when he first told me last summer, I was at Rose City Comic Con in Portland. And again, we're friends. And for years, he's been like, hey, if you ever come out, to Portland, you got to stay with me. And I'm like, come on. And he's got like 4 kids and everything. And he's like, seriously, I mean it. And his wife's like, we mean it. And I'm like, all right, great. And I said, can I do the mother-in-law thing and stay like 5 days? And they're like, absolutely, that'd be great. I'm like, okay. So he tells me then, months before Superman 18 came out, that he's like, all right, Clark's going to reveal his identity to the world. And I'm devil's advocate. I'm like, is this a good idea? I'm like, there's a reason why this has lasted for so long. And also, I mean, really was thinking in terms of just story. And I'm like, well, that's how Superman relates to everybody, as being Clark Kent. No, he doesn't need that anymore. And he goes, he's about truth, justice, and the American way. Where's the truth in that? And I'm like, okay. And then, I just kind of peppered him with a bunch of questions. And I'm finally like, though, if he does reveal his identity, there's a lot of story that can come out of that. And he's like, that's what I'm talking about. That's where
it was. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, okay. And the same thing I know Chad's problem was, too, about aging John Kent. Mm-hmm. Everybody, I mean, and there's a lot of Super Sons fans out there. I totally get it. Yeah. I mean, I have lapsed reader friends that came back to comics specifically because of Super Sons. And they were just knocked out by the concept. And, you got to hand it to Tomasi and Dan Jurgens, who, were – I think writing tremendous Superman stories, picking up the pieces of the New 52 that had such an awkward run. Yeah. And it's a shame because, again, there's a good writer that I think Gene Yang's a really great, obviously, he's got a genius grant. He doesn't need me to say that he's a great writer. But I wasn't feeling it for the New 52 Superman. So I was really glad when they brought, post-crisis Superman and everything. And I'm like, okay. And then the son, and okay, this is interesting, watching him raise his son. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Again, he intrigued me with everything he told me about what he was doing and where we currently are now in the
that rebirth storyline. It was some of the most heartfelt stories I've read in a long time. I wasn't a big Superman fan until then.
Okay.
It touched my heart in a lot of different ways, man. It was really good. Then when Bendis came in, of course, it's like, oh, what is this? I had to get used to it. I had to see what was happening, and like you said, his intentions were good. I wasn't looking forward to that part of Superman it's him revealing his identity, because that just happened less than a year ago. It's like, oh, they're doing that again. Okay, well, fine. Yeah. Let's see what happens, and it's fine. It's really cool too because he does have a plan. As much as people don't think he does. As Rucka mentioned, I had I bared my grievances, and he's like, oh yes, that's part of the plan. That's what he had in store. I was like, oh wow, okay. He knows what he's doing, man. He's a career man. He's done it for so long, so I trust him.
And the satellite books are great too. I mean, Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane are really
hilarious. That's so creative, man. That fraction brain is next level.
always. He wanted to do something with Thor when they were doing, remember guys, when Marvel was doing those The End stories and stuff, and we got some really, really interesting stories. Matt wanted to do, and because he said it on the podcast, so I don't feel like I'm speaking out of school. He wanted to do where Thor was like, and it would be in the far, far future that Thor was like a computer construct and Odin was like a living planet. And it was just this insane idea. And it's just like, only Matt like thinks on that level. And I mean, Hickman does too, obviously. There's another guy. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what I love about Matt. Matt is always coming from left field with these great ideas. And I mean, really using the Jimmy Olsen Silver Age motif of all the crazy, you know, when he's Elastic Lad and Turtle Boy and all these crazy things. And it's just another day in the life of Jimmy Olsen. And it's just those little compact 4-page stories are just adorable. And Lieber's knocking it out of the park, drawing the goddamn thing too. I mean, it's just so great.
I do want to say, like, once again, I was saying I was playing catch up with all your interviews, and shortly after was Rosenberg. You know, I've definitely chatted him with a handful of times. I love Matt. That was really fun. I always love seeing him. So,
and you guys have a whole like connection because of music and everything. And
that's right. Yeah.
Before comics, so I can see.
Yeah, I interviewed him. I want to say 2 months ago on the S&B network on Comiccast, and we've met twice in person and had some good conversations, but it was, you know, reconnecting again, you know, face to face. You know, it's like, oh, went down the rabbit hole. That was so cool. And recently, you talked to some Pittsburgh homies. You know, Chad and I live in Pittsburgh. You know, talked to Jim Rugg.
I hung up the phone with you, man. And I called him again. This is the same Bendis conversation. And I said, I've been trying to get a hold of these guys for months. And they are two awesome guys, but kind of they keep to themselves, right, John?
Yeah.
Well, it had been years since I had talked to Jim or Ed. I mean, I talked to Ed about Grand Design. And I'll be honest, I mean, in both cases that I've talked to Ed, he was using the Superfan PR people, Dave Hyde's company, to promote. And Dave and I have a long relationship. I mean, I knew him when he was at DC 15 years ago. So yeah, I mean, you know, David trusts me in terms of that it's going to be a decent interview or whatever. So he always throws me bones. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to that person. And no, I don't. And when I saw that Jim had this amazing new Kickstarter for Octobriana, and also the way Jim's brain works, because how he discovered this, I have no idea. He describes it in several videos on Cartoon Kayfabe.
Yeah, Cartoonist Kayfabe has changed my life. They have, truly they have.
Great show.
And because, you know, most videos around here on YouTube you find are speculation, YouTube auctions, or about Marvel and DC. And that's pretty much all you get. You might get one or two that branch off from like Valiant or some independent stuff, you know, or here's comic book releases that are coming out. You get the same crap over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And you know, then you have the nice interviews, which I'm interested in. But I want to know about like how the donuts are made, man. You know,
Absolutely,
we all talk about the donuts, we're all eating them. We don't talk about how they're getting made, and we don't talk about, oh wow, there's more donuts than besides Dunkin' Donuts and, you know, that's Krispy Kreme. Oh wow, and these donuts taste better because they're made out of pure ingredients. You know, it's like, oh wow, like show me more, show me what else you got. So like I'm a huge Cartoonist Kayfabe fanatic now. I got the Crumb Criterion DVD they recommended, dude. I got the Batman Year One Absolute Edition they recommended that you must have as a creator. It has the 2 different versions in there. I got the Art at a Time Unknown Comics from 1900 through 1969 with a whole bunch of, you know, unappreciated artists.
Yep.
I kept going, dude. I had the Blighted Eye, the art collection from Glenn Bray, which is one of the best art books I've ever seen in my life. And then, you know, one more I got to show you.
I'm loving this
big artist edition, and it's absolutely ridiculous, dude.
Is that what is that? Is that
Chris Ware? Chris Ware.
Oh, it's of course Chris Ware. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of New Yorker covers, and and then also, you know, he's just the art. He's an artist in the truest sense, to the point where, like, you know, he makes, you know, 3D models and dioramas. You know, there's the old story where his grandma wanted to see his studio and he didn't have a camera or anything really, so he made like a little diorama of scale of his studio with every small detail in it and mailed it to her. You know, so these guys, cartoonist kayfabe, are real ones.
Well,
Real recognized as real, dude. And we just I would love to talk to those guys more. And I have talked to him once or twice, but Jim Rugg's Kickstarter project, I had to back it. I had to get the $100 tier, get the 3-4 different like fluorescent light posters that are going to be there. I got to buy a black light now.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, check out Jim Rugg's Kickstarter for Octobriana. It's all black light fluorescent comic book, the world's first.
John,
So
you just told me about that.
Yeah,
surprised that never happened before.
Yeah. Well, that's why that's the Kickstarter campaign that he's got going, and he discovered this crazy Soviet. I mean, it's actually from Czechoslovakia, the character, but it was kind of a faux Soviet hero or heroine, kind of a Wonder Woman for the Soviets, basically a warrior woman. And, again, she's a character that's been used in a lot of different comic books. I guess Brian Talbot used her for Luther Arkwright, among others. And Trina Robbins had written about her as well. Ed and Jim are true comic historians as well as creators. And they really want to, those are the kind of people. And Jason, you're like that as well. And Chad, as I get to know you, and you know your history as well, Chad, I appreciate guys that appreciate where comics came from, and because then you have a better understanding of where they're going. And really, Jim has always been inventive that way. And God, Pisker, Hip Hop Family Tree was so cool. And then when
absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and then when he does Grand Design X-Men and really is able to condense all the stuff that they did in the classic years of Claremont and Byrne to get it all in 2 treasury size books is just amazing. And I love Ed's style. I love Ed's style of art. And Jim just keeps reinventing himself. And I'm like, I called him the Quentin Tarantino of comics because in a lot of ways, that's how he approaches comics. He's inspired by old stuff and can put a new spin on it and make it his own. And that's what he's doing with Octobriana. That's what he did with Aphrodisiac. He's just an inventive guy. And a lot of times it's like, oh, those black light posters from the 70s are cool. How do they do that? And he cracks the code and then does it on his own. So no, I love Jim. And also, again, he's a great talker. And again, we luckily have run into each other a few times over the years, so it wasn't that hard to go, hey, let's do something. He's like, oh yeah, absolutely, man. And again, my YouTube numbers are, again, I'm just getting started. God, kayfabe, they're kicking ass and everything on video. But also, Jim was doing podcasting for years prior to kayfabe. So,
oh yeah, that's right.
He's prepared. And again, it's a great show. I agree with you. It's one of the best shows out there.
The Octobriana character is so interesting in itself and so strange. No one really knows where it came from. We all have kind of various ideas. Like even David Bowie has Octobriana tattoo. You're surprised of how many people know about Octobriana but don't. And I'm interested to see how he's going to take the character. There's some rumors that maybe it was created by like the CIA. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like a Cold War but pro-Americana. But it's also like kind of as he points out, it's kind of like an Orson Welles War of the Worlds thing. Because again, it's this Czech historian that claimed that it was this underground comic that all made up.
But supposedly in the myth that they were kind of there to preach against the establishment, and there was this really like forbidden comic book and everything, and if the government found out they were doing it, people could have been thrown in jail because all the printing presses were owned by the state, and all that part is true. But it seems more this Czech book that Jim discovered and stuff. I think as he did more and more research and everything, he realized it was a hoax. And also the guy who originally wrote the book, I guess, had passed away in the 90s.
That's right.
It still is this great mystery of where this thing originally came from.
And Ed Piskor with his Hip Hop Family Tree and what he's working on now, I think it's called Red Room. What is he working on now? I don't even know. I want to say it's called Red Room. Is that his new comic he's putting out? I forgot what it's called. I think it's something like that. But he has a Patreon that I attribute to to see these sneak preview pages because they're so detailed and he's just a great artist. He has these awesome panel designs where I feel like every frame is its own special, unique design, special border around it, each one. And I really want to convince him to make like a metal family tree book. I'm into that stuff. And his gore. his attention to grossness, I don't know, it would fit really well with like, death metal and stuff like that, so, and I work for a death metal label, hand in hand, man, hand in hand. So,
well, I used to pride myself on being a captain of Segway, and I have a question for John from the group actually, and pose this, but Carson came up with it. Most important book since 2000, in your opinion?
The most important book since 2000, most important comic book. Ooh. Well, I'll tell you, I would lean on, well, I think The Walking Dead. I think if you're going for since 2000, from a pure sales and really sparking the zombie zeitgeist and everything. So I guess, and it's funny because initially I was going to say Brubaker and Sean Phillips in terms of their diversity, but those Kirkman and Charlie Allred numbers, and starting with Tony Moore, you can't deny The Walking Dead's impact. And Kirkman is a guy that it's been about 10 years since I've had him on, but I used to say that about Jeff Johns, and Jeff's been on twice in a month, so I think I never say never. And every time I see, although now God only knows when we're gonna have the next convention, every time I see Robert at a show, he's a sweetheart. And then really is like always incredibly kind. But, he's being pulled in a bunch of different directions. And the few things I have seen him on are things like Latour's show. Jason, by the way, does an excellent YouTube show as well. I think he's doing terrific work. And I've always loved him as an artist. And then I think he's a very strong writer as well. So, but yeah, I would, sorry, long answer to a short question. Walking Dead.
It's not a short question, because essentially with the way that the market is, and these people are, a lot of people, you're talking to 3 readers here.
Sure.
And that's why
we're all 4 readers. Yeah.
And that's why we admire you, because you are 100% a reader as well.
Absolutely.
And we don't get tied up into the hype. Like, there's a Marvel's preview right now that is going for $2,100.
One of the preview issues? That's hilarious.
It's a preview issue.
Catalog
for Miles Morales.
Yeah. Oh, funny. Wow, of course. Oh, Chad froze.
Oh, he froze.
It's sold for $2,100. And
but you're back. You're cool now.
You're
good.
Did
I freeze?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. The one thing that drives us crazy is like what's right now. I'm seeing high prices. What do you see the state of comics post COVID being?
God only knows, man. That's the big essay question. I think all of us are wondering that. Again, in my conversations, Heidi McDonald and I were just postulating what's the shopping experience going to be like now. Can you go through dollar bins anymore? Can you even browse the new releases and whatever's on the racks? It's going to be. Eventually there'll be a vaccine. Eventually things will get back to normal. But we're going to be in a very strange time, even when they free up most of the states. So yeah, I honestly don't know. I never worry about the speculator side as far as, and that is intriguing that it is that Marvel previews with Miles is worth as much as it is. But honestly, I just read this week that Marvel canceled a bunch of variant covers, like one initiative they were going to do. And that's the thing. It's very interesting. The books that they've decided, are going to finish up the story arcs digitally instead of, as paper books and stuff. Matt Rosenberg affected by that with Hawkeye.
That's
right. So yeah, I honestly don't know as far as what the future will hold. Again, because I don't think anyone's going to feel secure, at least until sometime in 2021, as far as conventions, physical conventions go. I think that's going to be, something that, again, it's interesting. New York hasn't said they're canceled yet, but Magic 8 Ball will say all signs point to, no.
Yeah. that Javits Center too, they're holding a lot of sick people in there. Like, I don't want to go in there.
Well, that's, man, Jesus,
Hey, Carson, how's that chat going, my man?
We got some people in this chat. Of course, guess what? It's Comic Core night. We've got Chris Barrett in the chat, of course. Still saying he's the Cosmic King or something like that. We got Chaos and Comics probably future winner of that Bruce Moreau trivia show. He's been hanging out in the chat since the start. Chris Barrett's answer to the question previously says, Walking Dead 1, most important adaptation wise, and saga number 1 reader wise. And of course,
That's
it's kind of
right,
cool.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
In issue 1000, even though it was by technicality. But yeah, Saga 1, Walking Dead 1, both good answers. Bob World.
I think Action and Detective reaching 1,000 is a milestone. It's as far as its significance as a game changer. No, but any books that started in the 30s that are still going, man, and especially with pretty much the death of physical magazines. I mean, think about that, and literally the newsstand doesn't exist anymore where these books are originated and everything. So, no, I think so. I mean, numbering books, can I Full Metal swear?
Yes.
I assume I can. Yeah, fuck both the big two with their bullshit. I mean, honestly, the numbering is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
They should really. I mean, I think they should keep the original numbering, and just every story should be like, okay, Spider-Man 1 through 5, the Sandman strikes. And then, Spider-Man, whatever they're at now, 906, but you can subset it with, okay, part 1 through 5 of, Enter the Goblin, whatever. I mean, it's why don't they do that to make it simple? And also, I mean, we all remember a couple of years ago when there were literally 3 number 1 Squirrel Girls within 18 months. And if you look at and if you look on if you went to like a Barnes and Noble or another, a bookstore looking for Squirrel Girl, well, you had 3 different trades that had number 1s on them. It's like, well, wait a minute, where do I start?
And then I'm sorry to cut you off, Sue.
No, go ahead.
Let's say your buddies, John, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Amanda with Harley Quinn. How they cut him off and just to change the team just to get a brand new number 1. Numbers were there. It was doing fine. So I don't know, man. I'm with you on it.
And it's interesting. And now they're cutting off Sam Humphries. He's going to be done in August. And I read. I felt bad. I saw Mark Andreyko say that Kate Spencer Manhunter has already been canceled, and they're cutting off Supergirl.
True. I feel so bad for the Supergirl fans because it's only the last issue that's digital.
Isn't that crazy?
Looking those in single and it's the last issue, like that would drive me nuts. I would say to all the Supergirl fans, bootleg one, bootleg that for you and your friends, and dish them out. Yeah, man. Hilarious. Oh yeah, dude, totally.
That's fantastic.
Into that, absolutely. And I felt the same way about Hawkeye. I love my Hawkeye, so it hurt me.
I thought it was a great. It's a great story. No, I mean that's the thing. Matthew's a terrific writer, and I was kind of surprised that that happened. But again, I don't know what's happening. With the bean counters
behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I do want to say I loved your comparison to Harley Quinn's Little Annie Fanny. I thought that was perfect. You're not wrong, dude. You nailed it.
Yeah, if you see those great old Playboys that Will Elder used to do in Kurtzman and stuff.
Yeah, dude.
They're beautiful, but really, if you look at the stories, it's like, I mean, and literally, I'd go to Jimmy and Amanda and go, I know what you're doing.
Yeah,
you guys are doing Little Annie Fanny's Harley, and they're like, yeah, exactly.
Get a secret out.
Well, and again, because we're old farts, so we all know that stuff. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like Jimmy and I have very similar tastes. Jimmy is like the unsung genius of the last 25 years.
He is behind. I heard. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because he and Joe Quesada, they had Event Comics. They start up Marvel Knights. When Marvel is facing bankruptcy, they are kicking ass. And I've never asked Jimmy directly, but I can't believe when they handed Joe the keys to be editor-in-chief that they didn't offer Jimmy something similar as well. And I believe, and this is just supposition, that Jimmy would rather be a creator and then just likes to kind of do his own thing. And he's still a mentor. I do know he mentors a lot of artists and editors. And a lot of times they would give him editors to like work with and help them be better editors and stuff. And that, he was okay. They were just there to make sure the trains were going on time. And he would really help, guide them in terms of being editors. So yeah, Jimmy's a big threat. And I mean, he's a Kickstarter guru. I know a lot of people go to him for advice because he makes the books that he wants to on the side and sets reasonable goals and gets these incredible artists that I know, like Kurt Pyers is a great example, a wonderful artist from the Netherlands that he hooked up with one of his books. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, Jimmy's a genius. And Amanda's a fantastic artist that doesn't get enough credit as well.
Hey, Seawood, what were you going to ask? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was just going to say earlier about legacy numbering and how they change all that. I feel like sometimes as a core reader, like the books aren't for me anymore, and I just get kind of lost trying to keep up with where everything's at. And sometimes when I'm flipping through some of those dollar bins, I'm like, oh, there's this cool issue of Spider-Man. I have no idea what relevance this has because it's like a number 3 or 4 or 5. And like I said, it just gets so confusing to the point where if you stop keeping track for a few minutes, it's really hard to get back on that track. So I feel like because a lot of this like legacy numbering gimmick and, you know, the number ones to bring in the new fans in to buy those number ones, I've kind of just gotten lost with a lot of modern Marvel and even DC to that point.
Do any of you guys do Marvel Unlimited?
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
do.
See, I think that's a great resource because I'm the same way, man. I can't keep up with everything. And, you know, it's about 6 or 7 months behind the current books. So that always helps me. Like when I know I'm going to talk to a creator and I haven't picked up their books in a while, I'd say, okay, well, great. I can dive through Marvel Unlimited. Yeah. And it's a great deal.
Yeah,
it really is a great deal. So
I mean, it's all about
the new X-Men books.
And one of the things that a lot of the creators have been steering me to, like they've been, as I was talking, is Hoopla. I never knew anything about this Hoopla. And so to read a trade, because this was a topic that we had prior, and I think it goes well with where we're at right now, is the question I had last night is since, and I used Flashpoint as the timeline, since Flashpoint, is there a one book that you would say to anybody here, this is why you're going to like comics? Because
from the big two. From the big two. Since Flashpoint. So that was about 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe
2011, right?
Oh, goddamn, that long ago. Holy shit. So in the last 9 years. Well, let's see. I mean, I got to think now. Well, trying to think of different runs, and I mean that's the thing.
But you can't think of a. I mean,
well, I mean, honestly, I like Tom King's Batman. And by the way, here I'll give you a great self-contained 12 issues, King's Vision.
Yeah,
King's Vision to me is one of the best sci-fi comics, and I mean, it could have been a Twilight Zone or an Outer Limits if it was made in the 60s.
Yeah,
and it was such a great, you know, and of course, yeah, you know, honestly, I think Mr. Miracle, if you're not a fan of history, you know, comic history, I mean, I think it was great, but I mean, you know, like we know the Fourth World, but I think you could hand people Mr. Miracle and just go, okay, this is an artificial intelligence that's trying to create his own family, and robots gone wrong. And I think that's why, I mean, you really don't need to know the Vision or the Avengers for that matter, but just to appreciate it as this android that's trying to create a family, and just everything that happens in it. So yeah, I think that's a book I'd say since Flashpoint that I would point to people and say, there's a great comic book. And also a lot of non-superhero stuff that unfortunately isn't just coming to mind. I mean, Brubaker, Criminal is so great. Yeah. I mean, Criminal is just a great crime ongoing anthology of stories that are all kind of connected. So, I mean, there's another great example I'd say since Flashpoint.
Hey, so Carson, I'll let you ask the question because he brought it up about the superhero hype.
Wait, which question?
The superhero hype. Is it over?
Oh, yeah. We were talking about the superhero hype previously, and you know, I kind of made the point. I feel like some of the better storytelling's happening in Hollywood than in the books. So, do you think we're kind of getting to this big crescendo to the point where it's starting to decrescendo a little bit with the superhero hype?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think things are quiet, and then all of a sudden a book emerges. And I think that fresh ideas are still happening in the comics. I agree with you. I think Hollywood is more than catching up, and in some ways probably surpassing, because they've got a bigger budget. But they also, if you look who's making these great stories and stuff, they're all people that came from comics. Guys like Mark Guggenheim, you know, and Jeff. I mean, John's Stargirl is so great, but Stargirl essentially is Stars and Stripe, represented as a television show. And I'm in love with it, man. Honestly, I feel like I'm being a shill because Jeff gave me this early access and stuff. But really, I swear, when I first talked to him off the air, I'm like, Jeff, this is good. He's like, oh, thanks, man. I'm like, no. I'm not bullshitting, Jeff, and I'm not just being nice. This is exceptional, and I really think the Stargirl TV show is so perfect for this moment when we're all stuck in this weird situation.
Absolutely.
It's a great family show.
Mhm,
It's not cheesebally. I mean, the kids aren't hokey in it, and the
Yeah.
adults have interesting things to do as well as the kids. So
Solomon
you're really
Grundy
enjoying
looks like Solomon Grundy.
Good Lord. Yeah, I mean, the CGI just keeps getting better and better.
See, I haven't watched it, and I'm kind of excited because I've heard John
Really
say,
good.
John said it was, and then Carson said it was, and obviously Jason, you saw it, right?
Yeah, I have DC on DC Universe. I've yet to watch it. All I know is all the YouTubers I watch that are critical of these shows and in CW and all that stuff, they loved Stargirl.
That's
Now,
true.
Is it
Yeah, you're right.
based
The ones
off
I've
of
seen.
John's run?
Yeah, well, the character Stargirl, I mean, that's John's heart and soul right there. That's based
Yeah,
on his
it is,
sister. They even put an Easter egg in the first episode that I want to go back and see, where in her room, like her younger picture is actually his sister Courtney before she died in the plane crash.
Oh my God, I didn't know that, Carson. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to.
I just read that a
I'm
couple
gonna have
days
to talk to Jeff about that. Jeff and I, man, I'm so honestly, guys. I got a shoehorn up my a shoehorn. That sounds even more uncomfortable. I got a horseshoe. I got a horseshoe up my ass as far as my luck because my brain clicked in, and Jeff sent me initially just to do a preview. He's like, "I'll send you the first 5 episodes." I'm like, "Okay, great, thank you." So I watch them all, and then the night before, I'm like, "Wait a minute," and I'm like, "Jeff, could we like do episodic recaps and pre-record them, and I'll drop them immediately after?"
I know, I
they
saw
air?"
that, dude. Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, as long as you wait until it airs on the CW and you don't just do it for streaming." I said, "Done," because I'd rather talk about. I'm not a big spoiler guy. I'm not a big first. I don't need any of that. It's like when you guys are comfortable, meaning the creators, when they're comfortable to talk about something, I'm cool with it. That's fine. I don't need to spoil. I don't need an exclusive. It's fucking comics, man. I just want to have a good conversation. So yeah, we've been doing it, and we're already set with it. Episode 3, and we're going to record every episode and do recaps and stuff. And hopefully, his schedule will be free enough to be able to maintain the schedule. He couldn't do the first week because he was doing all this pre-hype, with all the big like CNN and USA Today and all the big outlets and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "That's all right, man." I go, "Well, it's the pilot and the first and the second episode are really like the first story together." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Yeah, we'll just do an episode 1 and 2, and then we'll move forward." So yeah, that's incredible that he's doing it. And then I did the same thing with Pat Schumacher, the co-creator of Harley Quinn, the animated series.
And I saw those, and that show was fantastic.
A lot of fun.
Oh my
the
God.
animation is
That's the
stellar.
one I
Yeah.
need to catch up on.
That is
what the adult humor that they're letting him get away with. I mean, I won't spoil for you, Carson, but I mean, like seriously, I'm like, okay, so that joke, yeah, DC was cool with, the Warner Brothers people in DC, they were cool with that, and you got like,
but yet they get mad
women.
but they got mad about the Wang.
Yeah, right.
But again,
Superman couldn't even have a mustache.
But I guess with the Wang, with Batwang, that was in the comics, whereas Harley Quinn is an adult cartoon, and that's the thing that he's like, "Hey man, they came to us and said we want an adult cartoon," and there are a couple things that they said no to, but I mean, my God, Carson, there's a joke in the 3rd episode of the 1st season that it's like, they let you do that, and he's like, "Yeah," and it's like, "And you have all these women on your writing staff?" "Yep."
Oh, yeah.
And they let you do that, and they're like, he's like, everybody was cool with it. I'm like,
wow.
Yeah,
for you
it
guys.
was pretty bad. The way that they portrayed Damien too was the first time, like,
hilarious.
Yeah, oh my God,
Hilarious.
They nailed it.
Wow.
That's what everyone's thinking how Damien is.
We're talking DC. I mean, obviously the MCU is fantastic. Everybody loves the MCU. Kevin, he has the Midas touch at the moment. But when we look at DC, it's a little bit hit or miss, right?
With the movies.
But the television shows, and one of the most
forgive me, I just want to clarify. You're talking that the TV shows are hit and miss too?
No. I think they're great. I said, but the TV shows have been phenomenal.
Yes,
and especially even like Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing was fantastic.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
but Carson, your favorite and my favorite happens on a suit. Yeah, Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol's amazing.
Best show. It is fantastic.
It's
It's like
so well cast.
they're like
Mhm,
it's like they
absolutely.
handed them, hey, this is Grant Morrison's run. Just do this,
Yep.
and you can't go wrong, right?
Well, again, everybody over at DC Universe Streaming understands and is, I mean, thankfully, the generation of TV writers, they grew up on the comics. They know why they're good. And the CW shows, it's the same thing. I think it's going to be interesting when we do next year see the Justice League Snyder cut. I'm not expecting it to totally make me do a 180, but I will say that the director's cut of Batman Superman was a lot better than the initial theatrical cut, to the point where it just got me angry. And I'm like, why didn't you release this in the first place? So think about it. A lot of the people that were in the power regime then are no longer at DC, running DC, films, whatever it's currently called. Diane stepped down, and of course the guy in charge of Warner Brothers got Me Too'd, and he's out or not, or whatever. I mean, he just got busted, I think, and also he was putting his girlfriend in all of her movies and stuff, which is incredibly fascinating. And as much grief as Jeff got for supposedly, being one of the guys to say, well, we're not digging the Snyder cut, let's rework Justice League, let's get Whedon in. It's like, yeah, let's not forget that he had his fingerprints all over Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and those two were big hits. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's perfect. I mean, my buddy Jeff Loeb, who I love, and got kind of ousted as president of Marvel Television now that Feige wants to take over. I understand Feige's got the Midas touch. I give Loeb a lot of credit. He didn't bat 1,000, but I'd say he batted 500 between the Netflix shows and the other shows. Cloak and Dagger, I think, was an incredibly interesting show. And I think several of the Netflix shows were good. And yeah, Iron Fist was a little weak. Defenders was a little weak. But I think Luke Cage and Jessica Jones were amazing. I thought Daredevil was fantastic. I thought Punisher was fantastic.
And Legion.
Legion is incredible.
I love Legion. That's
Oh,
one of my
yeah.
favorite shows.
Legion.
Yeah.
That first season is like maybe one of the best seasons of television I've seen in a long
I've yet
time.
to see season 2 because I've rewatched that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, same. Every time I would see Legion, I was like, I just want to watch the first season again.
And you are John. You've had the privilege, and you're making Carson and I both super jealous of the fact of your relationship with Jeff Johns. I'm not gonna.
Well, Jeff, just like you said about Jim Rugged Pisker, Jeff just got too busy for me, and really, like I said, I mean, 2010. I remember it was at C2E2, and he was still writing Green Lantern. He's like, John, we should do like a great discussion between me and all the other Green Lantern creators, and we should do. I'm like, that would be great, Jeff. And then all of a sudden, he became the chief creative officer, and he was just always too busy. His assistants through the years, he's on a second assistant since then, but they were always very sweet, and they're like, John, he would really love to talk to you. He's so busy. And I'm like, okay. Heath Corson, a great animation writer that did a lot of the really good DCU movies in the last 5 or 6 years, he was telling me he had to sit down and pitch his idea for either the Aquaman movie or the first Suicide Squad movie. And he's sitting with Johns, and he's like, the phone just kept ringing. Hey, he's got to make a decision about this toy. And oh, by the way, they have a question on the set of this movie. And it was just constantly being interrupted. And so I'm like, I get it. And I never saw Jeff. And then, so, like he wasn't even at conventions where I was able to see him. He'd be on a special panel or something and they whisk him away. So, I mean, it really was COVID that I reached out and he's like, oh, good timing, man. He goes, yeah, let's talk. He goes, I really want to talk about Stargirl and 3 Jokers. And he goes, hell, I even want to, anything you want to know about Doomsday Clock. I'm like, that would be great, Jeff. And it was such a relief because honestly, it's like, again, I hadn't talked to him in 10 years. And he's like, John, he goes, I'm so sorry. It's been so long. He goes, has it really been 10 years? I'm like, yeah, man. But I'm like, I'm glad you're back. So yeah, I'm going to take full advantage, sadly, of the shutdown and, talk to him as much as he lets me talk to him.
For sure.
I got a question, Jason, regarding the 3 Jokers, and what do you think the delay was? And I know he shared it with you, right? Or
well, I mean, no, it really is because again, he's being pulled in all these different directions, and unfortunately, television and film have to take precedent over comics. That's just the way it is. So no, I think a lot of it is that Jeff was just, and then the same with Doomsday Clock. It was just that, Jeff was busy doing these other things that he had to get done because those are the bigger concerns. I mean, we have to face that, guys. I mean, we all love comics, but now that DC is a huge media entity unto itself because of television and film and animation, comics are going to take a back seat. It's where the inspirations for these things still come from, and I think they value the comics from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, right now that's the bigger game.
I wanted to hear Jeff Johns talk about this. Was on his website, but it's called the Killing Zone. It's like an imprint on DC, and I thought, oh wow, are they going to bring back like a Max kind of thing, like an extreme, like Black Label, but to the extreme, But I noticed on the website, I was just looking at the Mad Ghost website, and I didn't see it on there anymore, unless I couldn't just find it. I was lost on there maybe, but I took a screenshot from long ago, or not long ago, it was like a couple months ago. So the Killing Zone, I thought that was a interesting imprint coming to DC apparently in 2020. So
maybe it's maybe,
let me know.
maybe on the scrap pile with 5G. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
Now is it? I mean, really, the whole 5G thing. Listen, again, another guy that I think batted 500, and I appreciated when he hit one out of the park, was DiDio. I think DiDio was a great tonic for DC. I think creating the community that's behind the DC Nation, the kind of energy that he brought to DC fans can't be denied. But yeah, man, when I first heard about 5G, I'm like, is this a good idea? Right. I don't think so. And again, I get that need to innovate and keep moving stories forward, but it's like, guys, universally, Batman is Bruce Wayne, Superman is Clark Kent, and I don't think you should try and change that.
And that's a point that Bendis made with legacy characters, and he said to the group, when it comes to a legacy character, they don't have to follow the path of their dad or their mom or their parents.
Sure.
And that's one of the main reasons he wanted to give John his own story. He said, if he had access to Connor at the time, it would have been Connor in the Legion, and maybe somehow having Tim and Connor, but he had Jonathan. So how is he going to take it to this next step? And that was his point, is that you have to be true to the character, not the story, true to the character. And when truth prevails over everything, and that concept made me appreciate his writing so much more and understand and dive into it, that I think if he would have done Legacy or the 5G, I think it would have been successful.
I don't know about you guys, but I think if it would have been self-contained in the way that when they did Tangent Comics back in years ago and made it its own separate line, I think people would have been more receptive. My concern was that, much like Marvel's mistake with legacy characters, that all of a sudden you were going to pick up a book that's called Superman and John Kent's in it, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I want to read a Clark Kent Superman story. That was the big problem with Marvel. And in fact, I won't name the creator, but I know at a convention when 5G was being discussed, this creator told DiDio, "Oh, so you're on the Axel Alonso exit plan with this?" I mean, literally, and this is a year before he got let go. And it's like, what are you doing, man? And again, that just, I mean, even if it would have been a stunt and been like, well, sorry, 5G. So for the next 12 months or 6 months, these people are Batman and Superman or whatever, and Wonder Woman's going to die, and now a Brazilian woman is going to get the spirit of the Amazons, and she's going to take over. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, come on, man. Because I agree. I think it will be intriguing watching John and Damian as teenagers. And it's funny because I'm old enough to remember the original Super Sons that were in the Brave and Bold and stuff. Yep. The Bob Haney stories. And they were goofy as hell. But again, I was 12 years old. I didn't care. And that's the other thing, guys. I mean, who are these books being directed to? So I can appreciate that there really does come a time when you have to decide to accept the fact that they are going to freshen things up for a younger audience and even revisit old ideas for a younger audience that is too young to give a damn about the first time we saw these concepts 20, even 40 years ago, even 50 years ago. And just be like, hey, no, you gotta let them experience this new stuff. It's for them. And that's why I do like Black Label. I think Black Label is a smart idea.
Yeah.
Because I'm glad that they have finally realized, although Batwang got in the way, as it would because it's so huge. But then it's in the way. But no, I think it's smart that they finally realize no, they have an adult audience. Serve that adult audience with an adult version of the product.
And also though, I think media is changing though.
Sure,
like
absolutely.
as before, like we didn't have access to Netflix. Kids weren't able to go back and watch the 1990 Batman or 89 Batman, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Sure.
Now you can make a movie 20 years later and it be a direct sequel. And then that parent, hey, at some point, I mean, my son is going to be 24 this week. And like, I'm sitting here watching Ghostbusters and he's like, what's this? I was like, well, dude, you're not my son. Get out. So like, sit down and watch this, dogs and cats living together. It's pandemonium.
Man, I'm telling you, and again, one of the victims of COVID, I was so psyched for that Paul Rudd Ghostbusters movie and the way they're going to tie to the original and stuff. It looks so cool. And my buddy Rob Burnett, a guy who I know is going to be involved with the second round of Mainframe as well. He keeps using the analogy of the way to reboot something in an effective way. He pointed to the Creed movies and how they rebooted Rocky, and he's absolutely right. And even I wasn't a fan of Star Trek Picard, but I appreciated the initial idea of, hey, remember that Next Generation second season episode where Data's on trial and is a sentient AI deserving of recognition as another life form? And it's like, that's intriguing. Now, what they did with the story afterwards, I'm not crazy about. But all of a sudden, all these people who were excited for Picard are like, oh, I'll go back and watch that episode and everything. And it's so great. And Melissa Snodgrass, the woman that wrote it, she's such a great sci-fi writer. And she and George Martin are like massive buddies. And they're, in fact, developing. I don't know if you guys have ever read the paperbacks, Wild Cards.
No.
Great superhero stories, unbelievable superhero stories, and they're making it into a TV series.
Very cool. With George Martin, those two, both of them together.
Yes, yeah. It's
wow.
George was the one who came up with Wild Cards. Melissa did a lot of work with him. Yeah, he really just kind of like helped her along when she was getting started and stuff, and she has really become one of his chief collaborators over the years. She's a great, very strong writer, incredibly strong writer.
That is awesome. Yeah, earlier you were talking about
funny story that I heard. No, from Brian's point. Bendis, when he was talking to the group and everything, he said, you don't want to change a character. He goes, I learned the very hard way. He said he went to lunch with Stan, and it was like one of his first lunch with just sitting down with Stan, and they were going to the Cheesecake Factory in New York City, and he sits down, he puts his napkin on his lap and standing behind his chair, and he's looking down, and he waits till Brian sits down, and he looks up and he says, why is Norman Osborn running the Avengers? And he said, at that point, I realized this man wants to know why his creation, his ultimate baddie, is sitting at the head of the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And I had to pitch him in order for him to have a piece of bread with me. He said, and when he said that, he goes, then the next day, flash forward to like a year ago, I'm pitching this thing about Jonathan Kent, and everybody's like, the cells are up on Superman. His jaw, he goes, everybody's jaw's on the floor. And it was like, listen, here's the plan. And he said that in that meeting that day with Stan, that Stan gave him a piece of advice that was pretty awesome. He said, your third issue is your first issue. So he read the one issue with Norman, and he goes, I'm going to give it 2 more. The third issue is always your issue. And you think about that, like, first 2 are typically the origin, but it doesn't get into the story until that third issue. and it was just a really cool concept of the way he thought. And now it's making me think about a lot of stuff. And I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have canceled after that first issue or that second issue.
I think I guess I understand what Stan's saying, but I got to tell you, man, I think the first issue is incredibly crucial and really needs to not just end on a, oh my God, Kevin Smith's first issue of Green Arrow. And I love that run.
Oh my God, it was so good.
Now, you see, I'll be honest, it kind of pissed me off because it was everybody talking about Ollie, and then all of a sudden the last page, there's Ollie. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I guess. I mean, you gave us some setup here and everything, but I really think you need to really hit people, knock it out of the park with the concept. I agree with, again, it needs an interesting turn in the third issue. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to talk to Brian about that and understand where Stan was coming from and how it made sense to Brian. Because, yeah, man, I just see so many, especially with new books. I always am like, okay, how good is that first issue? Because that's your calling card. And it's like, do you want to continue on this journey or not? But give me enough of a satisfying read in that first issue that I get a feel for where, what the story is. And also give me some sort of even small incident that wraps things up in that first issue. Because I just think books are too expensive.
Yeah, I usually give the first two a try.
Yeah, I think the ultimate example for me recently was the Dan Slott Fantastic Four, where I was looking so forward to the group finally getting back together, first time since Secret Wars. And the whole first issue is basically just following the perspective of Ben Grimm and Human Torch on New York. And then the other two, they're way off planet still. And I'm like, you had Marvel 2-on-1 to explain their whole story. Why are we spending one more issue that's an issue 1 of your new run doing the same thing? And it's like issue 2 and 3, I just happened to forget to take off my list. Actually turned out it was pretty good. So it's like, why did we need that first issue, though?
I agree. I warmed up to Fantastic Four as it went along. But then for me, it went off track and I stopped. But I think 2-in-1 by Zdarsky is far superior. I wish he would have continued writing that. Yeah,
that was fun.
You, John, you brought up a point about books being like sometimes being too expensive to waste your money on something that's not great or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's my question, and I'll ask it to the masses. If I was getting every single X-Men book today, tie-in book, everything, I will be getting 45 issues a month of X-Men.
Yeah.
And they're not even mutants anymore.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Dude, this is the X-Men are my kryptonite. They always have been. It's too goddamn big. The story is too sprawling. I mean, it's funny. I'm really catching up to John Hickman through Marvel Unlimited because, and I know he's a brilliant writer. So I'm sure that in John's hands, it's an interesting story. And I've even watched a few YouTubers break down the story and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that sounds intriguing. Okay, whatever. But I mean, back when Wanda said no more mutants, and then the word was, well, they're coming back. They've gotten rid of Genosha and everything else, but it's like, but there's 198 of them. I'm like, too many fucking mutants. I'm like, Jesus, go back to 12 mutants or 20. Fine. I'm like, God damn, that's a lot of mutants. And I'm like, I don't care. Hey, but Pixie's really cool. I don't give a fuck about Pixie. Good Lord. I mean, that was back when Ed and what Brubaker and Fraction were right now. Pixie's our point of view character. I'm like,
right.
I'm like, all right, whatever.
Man, you got to revisit her. That's so funny. I do love the Marvel Unlimited app, not just for the sprawling stuff that with a lot of tie-ins, but also for the Golden Age comics in there because you can't buy those nowadays and they're so expensive. So those are cataloged in the Marvel Unlimited, and those are great material to have.
And the Bronze Age stuff that I grew up. I mean, honestly, the original What If. God damn, I love that book. It was it was a pleasure, and truly my one. I got to interview him a couple of times at conventions. But I had one phone conversation with Roy Thomas where he sat down for an hour and talked with me. And honestly, I couldn't gush enough about What If because it was so good. And that's especially awesome. What they did with Captain America. And then when Brubaker wove it into regular Captain America continuity. And I love that the Patriot and Spirit of 76 were former Captain Americas during, the post-war years and stuff like that to explain the All-American Squad. And I love, too, that the 50s cap, the Commie Hunter 50s cap that was crazy. I love all that shit. I think that's fantastic.
If you could write a what if, what would it be? or at least have someone write it or whatever you want to do.
Gee, I don't know. I'm a massive fan of classic Nick Fury, Agent of Shield. So
yeah.
maybe I'd write a story about him post World War II, but pre Shield, and maybe set like a 50s.
That's great. That's a cool idea, man.
Well, and I love What If number 9 that featured the agents, who became the agents of Atlas, the 1950s Avengers, and that's such a great story. And Jeff Parker, who took that What If and then turned it into the series. I'm a huge fan of all those characters. I think Don Glutt wrote the original What If 9 that introduced that idea. But I just think that's a great concept. I don't think Byrne did as good of a job when he did his series of like kind of the pre Fantastic Four Marvel years of like the 50s. I forget what the series was called.
Okay.
But yeah, or even when Brubaker did the Marvels project and focused on all the Golden Age characters and stuff. So yeah, I just think there's interesting ideas from those characters to take them now and put a modern spin on them. I go back to what Matt Wagner and Steve Siegel were able to do with Sandman Mystery Theater and take those original 10-page Sandman stories and turn them into 5-issue arcs or 6-issue arcs, whatever they were. And God, it's funny, Jason, your Shadow T-shirt.
Steranko, yeah, I love the Shield Steranko covers. Is what I was going to say, and then coincidentally enough, Steranko.
yeah, it's good. Well, that's an original pulp, unless that's an homage to the original pulp that Steranko did. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's funny because the people who made these shirts that I bought from, I think New York Comic Con or it could have been Baltimore Comic Con. They were at our booth a long time ago next to Steranko, and they're like, if you could have any design on a shirt, what would it be? And he picked this one. He's like, this is my all-time favorite cover. So
I'm not surprised. I have the Shadow. You can find it, I bet, on eBay still, or maybe even Amazon to find it used. The Shadow Scrapbook is this wonderful book that was put together that looks at every aspect of the Shadow, the radio show, the pulp magazines.
Wow, that's awesome.
Everything, and it's so cool. And yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of the ideas that were behind the pulps. I mean, they were the precursor of comics in a lot of ways. And the stories, if you really do read the stories, they're not the greatest ones to read. But again, the concepts are just amazing. And
Absolutely.
The Shadow, I love the Shadow. Absolutely.
I definitely want to get into pulps a lot more. That's up there on things I'm gonna get into sometime soon.
You want to read Philip Jose Farmer.
Okay.
Did a great Doc Savage paperback called Doc Savage: His Apocalyptic Life, and he basically wove all the stories together into a cohesive history, and that's really good. And then he also did one for Tarzan called Tarzan Alive. So I'd recommend both of those.
So the great legend is in the chat, and I see he got Carson to smile. So I got to throw this real quick plug in here because tomorrow over on Comic Art Fan Live, they're having their auction, and I have some prior. I was supposed to do a panel, so I looked at the guest list and I was like, oh no, I can't do this. So I tagged in my tag partner, and John is going to be live at 2:00 with Joe Quesada tomorrow. Over on, and you'll be able to watch it on Comic Core as well. It's going to be streaming on all the channels, so check him out tomorrow. But so what are some of the hard-hitting questions you're going to ask there?
You got to think about it, man. I'll tell you, I'm going to look at, just take a macro look at the whole Marvel universe, both comics, film, all three, comics, film, and television, and then really kind of figure out some good questions. Because a lot of the stuff that you wouldn't think come under Joe's purview are things like, even there was like a Marvel Ice show a couple years ago, and Joe had to like sign off on that and get involved creatively for like the silly plot or whatever that they were going to do for that. But yeah, I'm going to have to think about that. I mean, yeah, you asked me this afternoon, so I'm like, oh, all right, well, I got time. I'm going to have to wrestle with some ideas and everything and talk to Joe. But I mean, honestly, I love Joe's career path. And God, did you see him on with the Drink and Draw guys?
Mignola, yeah.
Well, I didn't see this week's. I didn't see Mignola. The Dio episode a few weeks ago was amazing. And just the fact that both of those guys could talk about having to run the companies and stuff, and when they were competitors. I mean, even competitors, that's really not fair. They have so many friends at both companies, it really is like I always quote Hickman. Hickman's always like, books are on the same shelf for different reasons. And I think that, you know, it's really the fans that make it into this rivalry. I mean, there were a few times where there's been bad feelings between the companies, but I really think at the end of the day, and certainly the cross-pollination that we've seen in the last 15 years or so, it's like there's too many guys that have worked at both. I mean, certainly Brian and Casada are still very good friends. I mean, you know, obviously they're not sharing secret recipes with each other anymore, but you know, I mean, they're still really good friends.
Yeah, I always say iron sharpens iron, so it's great to have both companies around. I feel like they need each other really.
Yep.
So hopefully it lasts. We'll see.
Well, we're hitting that hour mark, John, and I wanted to personally thank you for coming on, and it was such an honor, man. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure, absolutely, man. No, and you know, yeah, I'm always happy to share any podcast insight I can give you, and I'm sure
how do
you guys will help me with the video side. You know,
how does it go in your opinion? Okay,
how things go? What?
Like as a podcast
Tonight,
format?
right?
Oh, this is a great conversation. No, I love this conversation. It's terrific.
So, hey, can you tell everybody where they can find you? We've got your scroll down here at the bottom, and
yeah, that's the website WordBalloon. You know, WordBalloon.com or WordBalloonBlogspot.com. Both the URL WordBalloon.com takes you to the same place. Spreaker is my podcast platform. I've been with them for like the last 3 years, and they've been terrific. And also, I'm on YouTube under Word Balloon. I mean, if you just look up Word Balloon as one word, I'm there. And when I stream, I'm at the Word Balloon YouTube channel. I also do it on Periscope via Twitter and my personal Facebook page, John Siuntres. So you know, I've got a when I stream, I try to simulcast on a bunch of different places to get as many eyeballs because I'm still growing my audience as far as
I got to hit that notification bell because a lot of times we're on at the same time. I think last time I was recording a Dungeons and Dragons game and I was trying to watch on the side while everyone was doing their turn. I'm like, man, I wish I could hear this.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
no,
John has the most entertaining guest, the platform, the one-on-one. It is fantastic, guys.
Thanks,
man. And thank you for tomorrow again. And
oh, my pleasure. Thanks for asking me. No, I love talking to Joe. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
We hope to have John on the 24-hour comic.
Sure.
I'm working on his panel, and he knows who I'm trying to get, Mr. and Mrs. So we will see. We'll take us out now, and that's it, everybody. Like the great legend says, good night, God bless. See ya.